Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into the really fascinating history of audio recording.
Yeah, we're tracing that incredible journey from, capturing sound mechanically all the way to the kind of techniques we use now.
Exactly. And we've got two great sources to guide us. First, a really revealing article from Mix Online about the very beginning of electrical recording.
Right. And second, something pretty special, the actual user manual for the legendary Ampex 350 reel-to-reel tape machine.
Fantastic. So our mission today is basically to understand how these technologies weren't just small steps, but like radical leaps forward.
They really shaped the music we listen to, didn't they?
Absolutely.
And for you, the listener, getting this history is sort of like getting a backstage pass to the foundations of music production.
Yeah, it helps appreciate the sheer ingenuity, right?
Yeah.
Moving from just mechanical stuff to the flexible, multi-layered recordings we almost take for granted now.
Totally. It's kind of a shortcut, to grasping this huge transformation in audio.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're talking mid-1920s. Recording music was, well, pretty basic compared to now. It was all acoustic.
That's right. Yeah, just picture it trying to capture a whole orchestra by funneling the sound into a big horn.
Which then physically etched grooves onto a wax disc.
Exactly. And the limitations were, huge, especially the range of sounds you could actually capture.
Right.
The Mix Online article mentions these acoustic systems. They typically only got frequencies from maybe 250 hertz up to about 2.5K hertz.
Wow, that's a narrow.
Very narrow. You're missing all the deep bass, all the really crisp, high sounds.
So things must have sounded pretty thin or kind of boxy.
Thin, yeah, lacking body. But, change was coming. The article points to groundwork like Edward C. Wente's condenser mic back in 1916.
Ah, okay. And better carbon mics, too.
Right. Those were crucial early steps in converting sound waves into electrical signals.
Which leads us to the big breakthrough, doesn't it? Henry Harrison and Joseph Maxfield at Bell Labs.
Yes. Their matched impedance recorder. That was the key.
Matched impedance. What exactly did that solve?
Well, think of it like plumbing. Sort of. If you have mismatched pipes, you lose pressure, right?
Okay.
Similarly, in early electrical audio, impedance mismatches meant signal loss, distortion.
Oh.
Basically, you lost a lot of the sound.
Ah, I see.
The matched impedance recorder made that electrical signal flow much, much smoother, more efficient.
So more of the original sound detail actually got recorded.
Precisely. It unlocked electrical recording properly, and the big result, the bandwidth jumped hugely.
How much?
From that 250 to 2.5K range up to 50 hertz to 6K hertz.
Whoa, that's a massive difference.
Monumental. Suddenly you could hear the rumble of bass, the shimmer of cymbals, things that were just lost before.
It must have changed everything for musicians and composers.
Oh, completely. They could use the whole sonic spectrum. Richer arrangements, more immersive sound. It was revolutionary.
So did the record companies jump on this straight away? I remember reading something about hefty fees.
They saw the value immediately. I mean, Columbia brought out their Vivatonal process.
And Victor had the orthophonic VE system.
Exactly. And the Mix Online piece says the license fee was $50,000 plus royalties.
$50,000?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yeah. That tells you how big a deal they thought it was. A
Yeah.
huge investment, but the payoff was a way better listening experience.
Okay, so that sets up electrical recording. Let's jump forward then maybe a few decades to the 1950s. Another massive shift. Magnetic tape.
Right. And the Ampex 350 is like the iconic machine from that era, isn't it?
It really is. And we have the manual right here, dated June 1st, 1953, with some later tweaks. What made the 350 such a game changer?
Well, it took that better sound quality from electrical recording and added the incredible flexibility of magnetic tape.
Flexibility meaning?
You could record, play back, erase,
Yeah.
and crucially, you could edit the tape. Cut and splice, that was huge. The manual itself is amazing, just packed with details.
Let's dig into some of those features. Tape speeds, for instance. It wasn't just one speed, was it?
No. 3 speeds on the 350. 3 and 34 inches per second, 7.5 and 15 IPS.
And faster meant better quality, generally.
Generally, yes. Especially for high frequencies. Think of it like frames per second in film. More information captured per second.
Makes sense. Did the manual mention recording times?
It did. Using those standard 10.5-inch reels at the slowest speed, 3 and 34, You could get maybe 4 hours on a half-track tape.
4 hours?
But crank it up to 15 IPS for top quality, and that dropped to just 32 minutes for full track, or an hour for half track.
Ah, the quality versus quantity trade-off.
Always. And it wasn't just speed, it was the consistency of the speed. That's where flutter and wow come in.
Right, I've heard those terms, unwanted speed variation.
Exactly. It causes pitch wobbles, instability. The manual gives really tight specs for flutter and wow, especially at 15 IPS, like 0.2%. Super precise transport was key for pro audio.
Looking at the controls in the outline,
Yeah.
seems pretty straightforward. Push buttons for the main stuff?
Yeah, start, stop, fast forward, rewind, all direct push button control. But what's interesting is the separate record button.
Why separate?
Safety, basically. You had to deliberately hit record, couldn't accidentally wipe something valuable just by hitting play or forward. Smart design.
Okay. And switches for motor speed and equalization.
Yep. Motor speed selects 334, 712, or 15 IPS, and the EQ switch adjusts the amplifier circuits to sound best at each of those speeds.
And a real size switch, too.
Right, for 10, 12, 7, or 5-inch reels, that adjusted the tape tension.
Ah, tape tension. That sounds fiddly. How did the 350 manage that? Seems critical.
Oh, absolutely critical. You need constant, correct pressure against the heads. The 350 controlled the torque of the motors.
That?
The manual even points out specific resistors R503, R505 for setting the torque and play record, and it was different in fast wind modes. Plus, that real size switch tweaked the tension too, using another resistor, R502, to compensate for the different reel weights. It was pretty sophisticated stuff.
And this wasn't all just gears and motors. There were electrical relays involved too, right? K501 and K506 mentioned?
Yes. Relays handled the control logic. Like hitting play would energize the play relay, K502, and the capstan solenoid, K501.
What did they do?
Well, they'd release the reel brakes and engage the capstan idler wheel. That's the rubber wheel that actually pulls the tape across the heads at a constant speed. Different relays kicked in for rewind or fast forward. An electromechanical brain, essentially.
Wow. Okay, so with a machine this complex, maintenance must have been a big deal. What did the manual say?
Oh, yeah. It really hammered home the need for regular upkeep. Daily cleaning of the heads, the capstan, tape guides, using ethyl alcohol.
Not just any cleaner then?
Nope. Specifically warned against using carbon tetrachloride, said it could damage the head assemblies.
Good to know. What else?
Weekly cleaning of the rubber capstan idler wheel, making sure no oil got on it. And specific oils for lubricating the motors and idlers. Gulf Crest A, Gargoyle DTEL Light. Very specific.
Precision, even in oiling. And what about demagnetizing the heads? That still seems relevant for analog gear.
Essential. Heads can get magnetized over time, which adds noise and can even erase high frequencies from your tapes.
Ouch.
So the manual details using a specific Ampex head demagnetizer, model 704, moving it slowly towards and then away from the heads to dissipate any built-up magnetism.
It sounds like technicians could really fine-tune these machines too, adjusting tensions and pressures.
Definitely. There were detailed procedures for adjusting the take-up and rewind tensions using those resistors, R503 and R505. They even described using a spring scale and string to measure the pull.
Seriously, a spring scale.
Yeah, to get the torque just right. And also adjusting the pressure of that capstan idler wheel against the main capstan.
Why adjust that?
Too little pressure, the tape slips, speed goes wonky. Too much pressure, unnecessary wear on the motor. So there was a procedure using a lock nut on the solenoid to get it just right.
The manual seems incredibly detailed. It even talks about the internal electronics like the amplifiers.
Right. Section 5 gives an overview. Mentions the record amp having 4 stages, tells you it needed a lot of gain to boost weak mic signals up to tape level.
Okay.
And it covers the playback amp, the bias and erase oscillator that's crucial for preparing the tape and erasing old signals, the VU meter for levels, and the power supply. All separate circuits working together.
And aligning this beast required special tools, I bet.
For sure. The manual lists things like that Ampex demagnetizer, high impedance headphones for careful listening, even a specific 14-inch hex wrench.
And always demagnetize before using alignment tapes.
Absolutely. You don't want a magnetized head messing up your expensive precision alignment tape.
Makes sense. Now that equalization adjustment based on tape speed, why was that needed again?
Well, tape responds differently to frequencies at different speeds. Faster speeds are naturally better for high frequencies.
Okay.
So the EQ circuits needed adjustment to compensate to achieve a flat, accurate frequency response, regardless of the speed you chose. You'd use an audio oscillator, feed in specific test tones like 250 hertz and maybe 8 kilohertz.
and tweak the EQ until the output level was the same for both.
Basically, yeah. To ensure what you recorded sounded accurate on playback. Figure 7 in the manual apparently shows the circuit.
And if something broke, there was a parts list.
Oh yeah, Section 6. Super detailed, with Ampex catalog numbers for everything, gold dust for repair techs, even an errata sheet with updates and part changes. Really thorough documentation.
Lastly, the physical size and power. This wasn't exactly portable, was it?
Not even close. The rack mount tape transport alone was 50 pounds. The electronics, another 18. Power supply, 8 pounds.
Wow.
And the console version, all in one cabinet, a massive 168 pounds, needed standard 115-volt AC power, a serious piece of studio furniture.
Okay, so the Ampex 350 is this amazing piece of engineering. But around the same time, 1953, someone else was doing incredible things with tape. Les Paul.
Les Paul, yes. Even before the 350 was common, he was already deep into experimenting with multi-tracking.
But not with tape initially, right? Acetate discs.
That's right. The Stringjoy article we looked at talks about this. Imagine trying to layer guitars and vocals one by one onto a single fragile disc.
Must have been nerve-wracking.
Totally. Make one mistake on the last pass and the whole thing's ruined. His track How High the Moon with Mary Ford is a famous example of that painstaking process.
Unbelievably difficult. So tape must have seemed like a miracle dam.
Absolutely. The story goes that Bing Crosby, who was a big fan, gifted him one of the first Ampex tape machines, a Model 200A.
And Les Paul being Les Paul, he modified it.
Immediately. His genius move was adding a second head, a record head, right next to the playback head.
What did that allow?
It let him play back a track he'd just recorded while simultaneously recording a new part onto the same spot on the tape. That was it. The birth of true sound-on-sound overdubbing. No more perfect live timing needed.
That is incredible, just adding a head. The foundation of modern recording, really.
Pretty much, but he didn't stop there, of course.
No. What else?
He started using a second tape machine to bounce tracks, record a few parts on machine A, play them back while adding a new part, and record the combined result onto machine B.
Freeing up tracks on the first machine. Clever.
Very clever. It let him build up those incredibly dense layers he was famous for, and it meant he had a safety copy. If he messed up the bounce, he still had the previous stage.
Smart thinking. And then came the big one. In 1953, same year as the 350 manual.
1953, yeah. He unveiled the first true multi-track tape recorder. 8 tracks.
8. How?
By stacking 8 recording heads very precisely, one after another, across the width of the tape.
So each head recorded to its own strip of the tape.
Exactly. 8 independent tracks. You could record on one, play back another, re-record track 3 without touching the others.
That changed everything for recording bands, surely.
Completely. Record the drums, then the bass, then guitars, vocals, all separately, then mix them together later. Total game changer.
It's hard to overestimate his impact, really. That Stringjoy article emphasizes how fundamental his ideas became.
Totally. That individual control over volume, EQ, effects for each track. That all stems from Les Paul's multi-track concept. It's baked into virtually every recording made since, even in the digital world.
The concepts carried over.
The core ideas, absolutely. Multi-tracking is still multi-tracking, conceptually.
Okay, so we've covered electrical recording, tape, multi-tracking. There's one other fundamental tool that came up, compression.
Yes, compression, another cornerstone. The Vintage King article we saw talks about how it's used everywhere.
Everywhere how?
From tracking individual instruments, controlling peaks, adding sustain to gluing mixes together, right through to the final mastering stage.
So its main jobs are controlling loud peaks, smoothing dynamics.
Right, preventing clipping, evening out performances, making things sound thicker or punchier.
Yeah.
And even for creative sonic effects when you push it hard.
And when did dedicated compressors first appear? Were they around in the 30s?
Seems like it. The Vintage King piece points to the RCA Model 96A from 1938 as maybe the first device actually called a compressor.
Before that, there were limiters and things.
Yeah, devices like the Western Electric 110A did similar dynamic control, but the RCA 96A was maybe the first distinct compressor unit for studios.
It's amazing to think about the evolution from those early tube units to today's digital plugins.
Huge technological leaps, from tubes to transistors to algorithms.
But the basic idea is the same, reducing dynamic range.
Exactly. Whether it's a vintage Fairchild or a modern software plugin, the fundamental goal manipulating the difference between the loudest and quietest parts remains the same.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've gone from acoustic limits to the richer sound of electrical recording.
Yep, thanks to breakthroughs like matched impedance, Then the huge leap to magnetic tape with machines like the Ampex 350 offering flexibility and editing.
Which Les Paul then took to a whole new level with sound-on-sound and true multi-tracking, basically inventing modern recording workflow.
Couldn't have said it better. And we touched on compression as another key tool emerging in that era.
And the big takeaway, the aha moment, is really appreciating how these analog roots inform everything we do digitally today.
Totally. Understanding the challenges they faced, the bandwidth limits, tape's linearity, the difficulty of early overdubs, it highlights the ingenuity involved. Those limitations actually drove incredible innovation.
They had to be creative because of the limits.
Exactly. They found ways around the problems and discovered techniques and sounds we still chase today.
That is a great point. So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Go for it.
Consider how those very limitations, the narrow frequency range of early systems, the fixed nature of tape tracks, how might that have shaped the actual music being made back then?
Yeah. Did limitations force certain arrangement choices or performance styles?
Right. And contrast that with today's digital world, which feels almost limitless. Does having fewer limitations change the creative process, too? Does it maybe make some choices harder?
That's a really interesting question. What did those old constraints force artists and engineers to do creatively that maybe gets lost when you have infinite options? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to ponder. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into recording history.
My pleasure. Fascinating stuff.